1 year ago, Kayla's mother vanished, leaving only her obsession with the cursed town of Eldoria. Now, standing at the edge of those haunted woods, Kayla and her friends must enter the forgotten town, desperate to uncover its dark secrets and her mother's fate. Standing at the edge of the familiar woods, the cool evening breeze danced across Kayla Hastings's skin, whispering promises of mystery. Somewhere inside lay the town of Eldoria, shrouded in legend, forgotten by time. Her friends had laughed off the old tales they'd heard growing up, but Kayla had always been different. Something of the myths of Eldoria, the town where time supposedly stood still, had always stuck with her. But now, it wasn't curiosity that brought her here, it was desperation. Her mother disappeared a year ago and vanished into thin air. Kayla had searched everywhere but came up with nothing. Her mother's obsession with Eldoria had always seemed like a fantasy from a bored woman. Still, Kayla couldn't help but wonder if there had been more to it. Perhaps her mother had been onto something, and that something took her away. Beside her, Nathaniel shifted, his tall frame casting a long shadow in the fading light. He'd been Kayla's rock for years, since high school days when life was more straightforward. He looked shaken now. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice low and tone even. "We can turn back." Kayla shook her head. "No, we need answers, and this is the only way." Her voice was firm, though inside she wrestled with the fear that curled in her gut. Behind them, the others waited, a mixture of excitement and trepidation etched into their faces. Ever the daredevil, Jackson was already ahead. His flashlight darted through the thick brush. He turned back, grinning. "You guys coming or what?" Blake let out a sigh, tugging at his slick leather jacket. "Leave it to Jackson to think he's on some weekend hike. We're about to walk into some haunted town, dude." Jasmine snorted. "Haunted, cursed, same diff. I don't know what's worse, the stories we heard growing up or that Kayla's seriously making us come here." "You don't have to come," Kayla said, irritation edging her tone. Jasmine threw up her hands. "And miss out on what could be the craziest adventure of our lives? I'm in." "Plus," Lauren chimed in, her voice as soft as ever, "it's not like we have any better leads right now." Ever the pragmatist, Aurora glanced at her phone signal, long lost. "Lead or not, this place gives me the creeps." Alice beside her nodded slightly. "Still, let's see this through." Annabelle was the youngest of them all, and their journey's purpose did affect her most. She had remained quiet, her eyes wide as she stared into the forest. Her grandmother had always told her of Eldoria when she was younger, a town nobody could ever leave. Although her grandmother had died years ago, those stories still lingered and filled Annabelle with unease. Standing on the threshold of that forgotten place now, she couldn't shake off this feeling that something terrible awaited them. "Come on, Annabelle," Kayla called softly. "We're all in this together." Most unwillingly, Annabelle followed the group further into the woods. The full moon hung high above their heads, its silvery light filtering through the treetops, and chills ran down their spines as they walked more profoundly and the trees grew closer together. It wasn't long before the world around them started to get impossibly still. They had crossed an invisible barrier beyond which the rules of reality no longer applied. At first, there was some light chatter between members of the group. Jackson told jokes, and Jasmine started teasing Blake about how out of his element he seemed in the wild. Once the path became narrower and more overgrown, though, everything shifted. The shadows deepened, and the air grew thick with the scent of earth and damp wood. "Something's wrong," Hazel whispered, stopping in her tracks. She glanced around, her green eyes wide, fearful. "Do you feel that?" Caden, quiet for much of the evening, nodded, frowning. "It's like the air. It's heavy." Blake snorted. "Heavy? It's a forest. It's just the trees and all this suddenly. The earth below them began to rumble and the trees to their left seemed to curve all at once in a defensive posture. Where there had been no path before, overgrown scrub turned into parted curtains. At the end of the path, something glowed dimly and flickered. "What the hell?" Tristan muttered, stepping back. "We're here," Kayla whispered, more for herself than anyone else. The rest exchanged fidgety glances, but nobody motioned to turn back. Jackson was the first onto the path. After some hesitation, the others followed. Now they walked silently, the bravado gone from their voices, replaced by a crawling sensation of dread. It grew colder as they pressed deeper into the woods, and soon, the trees opened to a clearing. The town of Eldoria stood in the middle of that clearing. It was almost surreal, an old-world village frozen in time. Still standing, though weathered and overgrown with ivy, it loomed with an eerie sense of pristineness. The cobblestone streets were abandoned except when the breeze stirred the leaves. In the town square, a large fountain stood, though a cracked and dry one. "It's beautiful," Annabelle breathed, her voice shaking. "It's creepy," Jasmine corrected, wrapping her arms around herself. "Like we're in some kind of twisted fairy tale." Kayla stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. "Let's look around. There has to be something here. Something that will tell us what happened." "Or someone," Nathaniel added, scanning the seemingly deserted streets. The group went through the town cautiously, their footsteps echoing off the ancient stone buildings. Blake stopped suddenly as they passed by what looked like an old inn, his eyes narrowing. "Did anybody else hear that?" The rest stopped still, straining to listen, and then they heard a faint, distant whisper borne on the wind. It was unintelligible but unmistakable. "Okay, I'm officially creeped out," Aurora muttered, backstepping toward Kayla. "We should leave." But before anyone could move, the whispering grew louder, swirling around them in a mini-cyclone. The air buckled and the earth started to shudder. A fountain in the middle of town was glowing with an eerie light. From its depths, a figure emerged. She was beautiful, almost ethereal. Her hair cascaded in a tumble of silver down her back, and her eyes glowed with an unearthly light. The air itself seemed still. She seemed to command attention. And then she spoke, her voice soft and all-encompassing, like the wind. "You should not have come." The group stared, frozen in place. Nathaniel, ever calm, stepped forward. "We mean no harm," he said carefully. "We're just looking for answers." The woman's gaze had cut to Kayla, and that stare pierced. "Answers come at a cost." Kayla swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the woman's gaze upon her. "What kind of cost?" The woman's lips curled into a smile, but it was cold, devoid of warmth. "Everything." The woman lifted her hand before Kayla could utter a word, and the surrounding area burst into light. Ghostly figures rose from the ground, contorted faces twisted in anguish. They were the people of Eldoria townsmen trapped, forever bound to the land. "The truth is not what you seek," she said, her voice carrying across the square. "But it is what you will find." It was as if the air thickened with magic around them, and in an instant, they found themselves standing alone in the town square. The ghost woman and the ghostly figures were gone too. Still, something was different. The town felt alive now, its streets hummed with quiet energy. "We need to leave," Annabelle urged insistently, eyes wide with fear. "We shouldn't have come here." "She's right," Blake muttered, his voice shaking. "This place, it's wrong." But Kayla shook her head. "No, we came here for answers. We can't leave without them." Nathaniel stepped up beside her. "Kayla." "No," Kayla interrupted, her voice rising. "There's something here, something important, and I'm not leaving until we figure it out." The others exchanged uneasy glances, but no one protested. They were in too deep now. Further into town, Kayla's feelings of dread became more intense. The buildings towered over them with their dark, gaping windows. Every so often, Kayla could have sworn that she saw something move in the corner of her eye, but when she turned to look, there was nothing. At last, they approached the outskirts of the town, where a mansion with rusty, ivy-covered gates stood. A strange buzzing was around it. Kayla knew this was the core of Eldoria's secret. "We have to go inside," she said in a nearly whispered voice. Always fearless, Jackson nodded and creaked the gates open. An awful, mournful groan sounded around the silent town square as if to warn off some sleeping spirits. The wide gates, now open, showed dark space in the mansion's interior. It appeared that the mansion was inhaling the group into its shrouded embrace. As they stepped inside, the atmosphere changed. The air was thick with dust, and the decaying scents seemed to hang like a shroud. Kayla felt a shiver run down her spine as she took in the elaborate architecture. The once grand foyer featured high ceilings with intricate moldings, but now, cobwebs curtained across the corners like ghostly veils. "This place gives me the creeps," Jasmine whispered, clinging to Nathaniel. "Yeah, but we've got to keep our eyes sharp," Kayla replied, though she wasn't blind to her apprehension. She could feel this weird pull toward the mansion's heart, some magnetic force pulling her toward it. They entered the great hall, and a circle of portraits stared down at them right in their faces. Serious faces stared back from the paintings, displaying pride and sadness. Kayla studied them, peering for clues that might lead them to the truth about Eldoria. One portrait caught her attention, a picture of a woman with silver hair whose eyes seemed alive but sparkled with some unexplainable sadness. "Is that her?" Annabelle asked, pointing to the painting. Kayla nodded. "It has to be. She looks just like the woman we saw at the fountain." "Should we even be looking at these?" Blake asked, glancing around as if expecting the portraits to come to life. "What if they're cursed too?" "Only one way to find out," said Jackson with a smirk, taking one step closer toward the painting. As he reached to touch the frame, the room grew colder. A sudden gust of wind tore through the room, blowing out candles flickering on the walls, throwing them into darkness. "Whoa!" yelped Jasmine as she stumbled backward into Nathaniel. "What just happened?" "Be cool," Nathaniel said, pulling out his phone as a flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness and illuminated his friends' frightened faces. Kayla felt a surge of panic as she looked around the room in the dark. "We have to find a way out or find out what's going on here," she said. "Look," Aurora said, pointing to a small door at the end of the hall, almost hidden behind a heavy drapery. "There may be something in it." "Or it could be a trap," Blake returned, strain wrapped in each word. "We'll never know unless we check it out," Jackson insisted, the adventurous spirit still strong through the fear. Resolute, with stiff steps, he started to move toward the door, the rest following a little more hesitantly. It creaked open to reveal a narrow staircase spiraling down into blackness from which an unsettling chill emerged. The air was electric, and it seemed to make Kayla shiver. "Great. Just what we need is a dark, creepy staircase," Jasmine muttered. "What's next? Monster in the shadows?" "Let's just see where it leads," Kayla said, attempting to sound a lot braver than she felt. "This may be our only chance of finding Eldoria's heart." They descended the steps in single file, creaking old wood groaning beneath their combined weight. It grew colder with every step downward. A low humming noise vibrated the air, sending the stone walls singing with the earth's pulse. Down below, they entered a room whose walls were lined with bioluminescent fungi. The soft, eerie light thus thrown out showed them a stone altar in the middle of the room, with ancient runes etched along its top face. Scattered around it were remains of offerings, wilted flowers, rusty trinkets, and yellowed photographs. Kayla stepped further inside, fascinated by the altar. "This must be it, the heart of Eldoria." "But what do we do with it?" Nathaniel asked, peering over her shoulder. "I don't know," Kayla admitted, heart pounding. "But if this is where the Guardian was betrayed, perhaps it holds the key to breaking the curse." As she examined the runes, energy coursed through her fingertips. The symbols glowed faintly in response, pulsing in time with her heartbeats. "Kayla, be careful," Annabelle warned, her tone full of concern. But Kayla couldn't let go. "I think I can feel it," she whispered, stroking the line of the runes. "It's like a memory, I think." The air solidified in the blink of a second, and a vision took her into another world. She was back in times of yore, standing in this very cavern, watching the townspeople of Eldoria gather around the altar as one. At the center of it all stood the silver-haired woman, aglow with so much beauty and power, adored by villagers. The vision changed, and she saw the moment of betrayal. A man with black eyes, filled with envy and rage, stepped forward. "You think you can control us? We deserve more than your petty rules." The silver-haired woman's expression changed from surprise to sorrow. "I only want to protect you. Do not let your emotions lead you astray." The man lifted his hands, and a dark energy surged from him, spiraling toward the woman. "I will not be ruled by a guardian," Kayla gasped as the scene flipped again, revealing chaos. The ground shook, and the townspeople screamed, fear and panic washing over them as the darkness enveloped the silver-haired woman. The vision was over in the same instant it had begun, and Kayla stumbled backward, gasping, her breath so short. The runes shimmered in a soft misfire, dimming at her alarm. "Kayla!" Nathaniel sprang beside her now, with furrows of concern upon his brow. "Are you all right?" She nodded foggily, her mind whirling. "I saw it. I saw what happened. The Guardian tried to protect them, but they turned on her." "The curse," Blake whispered, his brow furrowed deep in concentration. "It wasn't just a spell. It was an aftermath of their betrayal. What if somehow we can reverse it?" Jackson filled his voice with hope. "If we find out how to redeem the Guardian, we can take the curse off the town." "But how can we redeem her?" Aurora asked, shaking her head. "She's been here so long, bound." Kayla thought for a moment before pointing at the altar. "The offerings, maybe they hold the key to her redemption. If there is some way to honor her memory, that could break the curse." "We have to gather offerings from the town," Nathaniel concluded. "Things that remind us of Eldoria's goodness, joyful times, and celebrations." "And the woman?" Annabelle asked. Fear began to seep back into her voice. "She might not let us go that easily. We'll have to face her again," Kayla replied, determination building within her. "But this time, we'll be ready." As they turned to leave the cavern, the air once more merged with foreboding. A chilling breeze whipped through the room, and the darkness seemed to reach out, stretching for them. "Stay close," Nathaniel warned, his voice sharpened by instant vigilance. They climbed the stairs until they returned to the main hall, where Kayla felt the energy shift. The air was charged, and the hairs on her neck cracked with magic. They were not alone. Before them, the silver-haired woman materialized, flickering, it seemed, like a flame. Her eyes shone with sorrow and fury. "You dare return?" she asked. Her voice rumbled through the hall. "You cannot undo what has been done." Kayla took another step forward, trying to salvage her nerves. "We know what happened, and we are here to help. We want to honor your sacrifice and redeem you from this curse." Her face hardened, and Kayla felt the temperature drop. "You think you can change the past? The villagers turned on me, and I never left this place. I am beyond redemption." "But there can be," Kayla insisted, her tone even. "We saw your true heart. You were trying to protect them. Let us collect the offering for a ritual to your memory, and together we can lift the curse." The woman's stare lost its chill momentarily, and then it returned. "You are naive. To sacrifice, one must give much more than trinkets. To sacrifice means to understand deeply about loss." "Then teach us," Kayla replied, desperation slowly seeping into her voice. "Show us what we need to understand, and we'll do whatever it takes." The woman hesitated, her shimmering form wavering. "Very well, but let this be known. The path to redemption is dangerous, and the truth you seek may break you." In a flicker of time, the world around them changed once more before Kayla could say anything. The room went dark, and the two were whisked away to the core of Eldoria, a bright, vibrant festival full of music, laughter, and dancing. Kayla gasped as the scene changed. They stood in the middle of a burgeoning town square decorated with colorful banners and happy townsfolk. The air was electric, filled with a cacophony of echoes from laughter all around them. "This is what Eldoria used to be," Nathaniel breathed, taking it all in. Kayla looked around her heart aching at the beauty surrounding her. But as she gazed deeper, she spotted the silver-haired woman in the center, demeanor radiant yet somber. The townspeople loved her, yet there was an undercurrent of tension. As the music reached a crescendo, Kayla felt the tides of time weighing on her. She made her way to the Guardian, still standing aside from the merrymaking, scanning for something among these people. "What's wrong?" Kayla asked softly, almost lost in the sounds of revelry. The woman turned, surprised, flickering across her features. "You should not be here." "We're here to help," Kayla said quite seriously. "We know what happened to you and want to honor your sacrifice." "You cannot change what is already written," the Guardian said, tones laden with sorrow. "They will betray me. They will turn on their protector." "No," Kayla exclaimed, stepping closer. "We can help you prevent that. We can show them the truth." The Guardian shook her head, her eyes brimming with sorrow. "You cannot see what's to come. Their jealousy is a poison that cannot be healed." As the rejoicing continued, Kayla's eyes wandered to the townsfolk, replete with joy. Still, as she watched, she could sense the fire of resentment bubbling beneath the surface exchanged looks and muttered whispers. She could feel the tension, and Kayla suddenly knew that the Guardian was right. "We need to find a way to show them," she said, and in her voice came determination. If we can expose the truth, we might be able to alter the course of their destiny. The guardian's expression changed. At that moment, a flame of hope danced briefly across her eyes. Very well. You will need to gather the essence of this town, its memories, its joys. Only then will the truth be revealed. With that, the world around them once again changed, and the grip of times past faded away from Kayla. They found themselves once again inside the mansion, heavy with tension. What just happened? Jackson asked in awe. She took a deep breath, her heart racing. We need offerings that speak to the heart of Eldoria, joyful memories celebrating the town's spirit. If we can honor the sacrifice of the guardian, then we can lift the curse. But where do we find such offerings? Blake asked, furrowing his brow. The town is abandoned. We have to search the town for leftovers of the past, Nathaniel said. Stuff that may be very important to the people of the town. Maybe we could find something with the essence of Eldoria. Let's split up, Kayla said, determination arising once again in her face. That way, we would be able to cover more ground. Once they were ready to leave the mansion, the woman with the silver hair appeared again. Her eyes were sure and level, and she told them, "Be careful. The shadows of the past stir uneasily now, and they will try to prevent your passage." They received nods of understanding from the group and set off into the deserted streets of Eldoria. They wandered around town with the weight of what lay before them in their hearts. Moving from building to building in search of anything, Kayla was overcome with purpose. They made their way through the old inn, where the photographs on the walls captured laughter and joy from a time long gone. In the corner, Kayla came across a dusty music box with an intricate design that reflected a moment when the air was filled with music. This could be it, Kayla said, lifting the music box from its perch. She opened it, and a haunting melody sang as if to beckon them closer. "It's beautiful," Annabelle whispered, her eyes welling up with tears. "This could represent the joy of carnival," Kayla said, setting the box carefully into her pack. Next, they made their way to the marketplace, where signs of booths still existed but had been reclaimed by weeds. A few remnants of shattered trinkets were strewn about the ground. Jackson retrieved a small carved figurine, a sculpture of the guardian. "This could be important," he said, investigating the minute details. "It symbolizes the love and protection she had for the town." The two continued to search, amassing small tokens of a child's toy, a withered flower, and a handwritten letter tucked away in a dusty drawer. Anything that came up recalled the essence of Eldoria, the vibrancy that once filled the streets. When the sun started to set and painted the sky with shades of orange and purple, they returned to the fountain. The atmosphere felt different now because it was charged with energy and anticipation. "We have gathered a lot," Nathaniel said, setting the offerings before the fountain. "But is it enough?" Kayla turned to the silver-haired woman who had appeared beside them, her face unreadable. "It is a start," she said, "but the heart of Eldoria is more than just physical items. You must also face the reality of the truth behind the betrayal." "What do you mean?" Kayla asked, confusion clouding her brain. "The betrayal wasn't about envy per se," the guardian said in low, resonant tones. "It was based on fear. The townsfolk were afraid that they didn't understand, afraid of losing power, their grasp on self-determination." Kayla felt a shiver run down her spine. "And how do we overcome that fear?" "You have to unmask the truth, not only for the people in town, but also for yourselves," she said, her eyes afire. "Only then would you be able to break the chains that bind this town." It had finally set below the horizon. The weight of those words from the guardian settled heavily upon Kayla. They'd gathered not only to honor the past, but to face their own fears and insecurities. "We need to get together again," Kayla said, turning to her friends. "We need to share those things we fear that have held us back." "But what if we don't want to share?" Aurora asked, her voice trembling. "What if it's too painful?" "That's the point," Kayla said, a resolve hardening in her voice. "We need to let go of the burdens we've been carrying. It's the only way to move forward." A circle of teenagers formed around the fountain, heavy with pent-up anticipation. Kayla breathed hard, repressing the weight of her near-overwhelming feelings. "I'll start," she said, her voice shaking. "Mama disappeared last year, and since then, I've been searching for her everywhere. I'm afraid I will lose her forever and never know what happened. Something has pressed on me, and I don't know how to let it go." The rest of them listened as their eyes filled with compassion. "I'm scared of failing," Jackson said, the bravado finally falling away. "I always feel like I must be the strong one leading everyone, but deep down, I'm terrified of letting everyone down." Kayla listened as one by one, the burden of their fears lightened upon sharing. "It's a release," she said. "It's a step toward healing." Aurora spoke of her fear of being insufficient. At the same time, Blake revealed that his fear was vulnerability, afraid that opening up would expose his weaknesses. The air around them began to shift, the shadows drawing back as the energy began to pulse again with fresh vitality. The villagers of Eldoria seemed to appear to bear witness, their spirits eddying around and drinking in the essences of their confessions. As Kayla looked around at her friends, she felt a sense of unity, a bond forged through shared experiences and vulnerability. The fear that had once held them captive began to dissolve. "We are not alone in this," Annabelle said, the emotion trembling in her voice. "Together we can face anything that comes our way." The guardian stood before them again, the stiffness in her features softened. "You have taken the first step to redemption. Now you must face the final confrontation with the darkness ahead." "What darkness?" Kayla asked with a racing heart. "The darkness of betrayal, the root of the curse," said the guardian, "is nestled right in the heart of Eldoria, concealed from prying eyes. You shall have to face it head on." Kayla heard the determination well up inside her. "We're ready." She reached out her hand, and the air glittered around them. In one moment, they were standing in the town square, the air electric with anticipation. This time, however, it was different. A circle of townspeople stood around them, confusion and fear upon their faces. "Why have you summoned us?" one villager shouted, venom dripping from his voice. "We will not be haunted by the past." She stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. "We've come to help," she said. "We have gathered offerings to appease the guardian, to face whatever truth about what happened in Eldoria." The murmurs of the crowd undulated through them, a sea of uncertainty. "You think you can change what has already been done?" another villager spat. "We chose our path." "But you didn't choose it for the right reasons?" Kayla pressed, her voice rising above the din of sound. "You were consumed with fear and jealousy. The guardian was trying to protect you." The instant the words left her lips, the air shifted. A silver-haired woman stood beside Kayla, solid and full of commanding presence. "You have forgotten the happiness and love that bound you all together once upon a time," she said, her voice echoing with authority. "But fortunately, it is not too late. You can choose to remember." Kayla looked at her friends, whose faces were resolute. As one, they took a step forward and proffered the tokens they had gathered to the townspeople. "This music box represents the joy of our celebrations," Kayla said, holding it high. "This figurine symbolizes the love and protection the guardian offered. We honor her sacrifice and ask you to remember the truth of what once was." As they set them down, a soft glow emanated from the offerings at the fountain's base. The air crackled with energy, and Kayla could feel the townspeople's eyes upon her, their expressions shifting from anger to confusion. "We were blinded by fear," one villager admitted, stepping forward. "We did not see the guardian's intentions." "Drop that fear," Kayla exclaimed. "Cherish the memories that have kept you all together. The sacrifice of the guardian was not for nothing. Together, we can remove the curse." As her words echoed over the square, the energy in the air began to build up. People started to converge, making a circle around the fountain. One by one, they went forward and set before him their offering tiny charm, a wilted flower and a picture part of themselves, part memory of what Eldoria had meant to them. As the offerings were placed before the fountain, the glow heightened to illuminate the whole square. The whispers from the past faded, replaced by a harmonious melody humming through the air. The guardian watched, her face a mask of sadness, before releasing herself into hope. "You have chosen the path of remembrance. Only by embracing your history can you reclaim your future." As the light enveloped them, a surge of warmth washed over Kayla. The shadows that had dug deep into the edges of Eldoria started to retreat, and the smothering darkness lifted. Summoning the last surge of energy, The Guardian was already one step ahead as her body solidified. "Thank you, brave souls. By doing so, you have saved Eldoria and released me from my bonds." The people of the town were shocked, their eyes wide with wonder as the change began to consummate in the figure of a guardian dressed in resplendent finery and with silver hair right aglow with an ethereal light. "You have shown me the power of love and unity," she said, this time with warmth. "And for that, I will bless anew Eldoria." With a wave of her hand, the town around them began to change. The buildings brightened, their colors revitalizing from their faded state. The air filled with children's laughter, echoing through the streets as life returned to Eldoria. The change hit Kayla's eyes with pricks of tears. The town was no longer a place of despair, but a community filled with joy and hope. "You are the true guardians now," the woman said, eyes locking on Kayla. "You have the power to shape the future of Eldoria. Cherish it and protect it." As the energy began to settle, Kayla looked around at her friends, their faces filled with relief and joy. They had done it together, faced the darkness and emerged victorious. The townspeople began to celebrate, laughter and music filling the air. Kayla felt a feeling of belonging wash over her, the warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. As the joyous celebration continued, Kayla stepped aside, overpowered by gratitude. She discovered the truth about Eldoria and, even more importantly, about her inner strength. Her journey transformed her and let her experience the power of love, friendship, and, most of all, confronting one's fears. She felt serene as the sun set over the horizon, casting a pale golden brightness over the town. The burden of her mother's disappearance was lifted, and instead, the view before her showed Eldoria alive and prospering once again. She joined her friends in the square, where the joy of the town's rebirth was written across their faces in celebration. At that moment, Kayla knew she had found what she had been searching for, and a deeper understanding of herself and her place in this world. As the merrymaking took over the darkness of night, a warmth would seep into Kayla's heart. It was a night of laughter, music, and scents wafting from food kiosks dotting the square. It was just too surreal to imagine, completely the opposite of the fear and despair that had been just hours before. Jackson and Blake conversed deeply with villagers, sharing stories and laughter. Kayla could see the joy in their eyes. It was a realization that they all had taken part in reclaiming the spirit of Eldoria. Aurora and Annabelle were a little further away, discussing what lay ahead. "We should come back and visit," Aurora said, her eyes sparkling. "This place is incredible." "Absolutely," Annabelle said, her face beaming with a bright smile. "I want to learn more about Eldoria's history. We could document it and share it with others." Kayla swelled up with pride for her friends. They all grew up in ways nobody could have predicted. They had faced their fears together, embracing an uncertain future. As night deepened, the old pull tugged at Kayla's heart. Stealing from the frolic, she was drawn to the source, inevitably to the fountain. Water gleamed like molten silver in the moon's rays, its sheen a mirror to the stars. Standing before the fountain, Kayla thought of her mother. Was she proud? Had she too ever believed in Eldoria's magic? A gentle breeze stirred leaves around her as if in reply, and Kayla closed her eyes, conjuring up her mother's face. The warmth of love wrapped around her, and she could almost hear her mother's laughter mingling with the burble of the water. "Mom," Kayla whispered, a tear escaping down her cheek. "I found Eldoria. I found my strength, and I won't stop searching for you. I promise." As she said this, she felt a presence beside her. She turned. It was the Guardian now, shining, her silver hair aglow like a halo. "Well done, Kayla," the Guardian said, her voice soothing as the sound of water. "Your journey does not end here. You can shape not just Eldoria, but the world beyond." Kayla took a deep breath, the weight of the Guardian's words washing over her. "I want to help others that are lost as I was. I want to share the magic of Eldoria and the stories that it holds within." The Guardian smiled. Her eyes were warm and reassuring. "Then your path is clear. You shall carry the light of Eldoria within your heart. Share such light with those who seek it, and it shall grow." A wave of new hope washed through Kayla's veins. This was only the beginning. She now had a mission, to find her mother and spread the magic she'd seen to others. Time flew by, and so did the fun. Music filled the air, and the roars of laughter reverberated down the street. Kayla rejoined her friends, her heart a little lighter than it had felt for months. They welcomed her with open arms, their friendship more robust than it had been. Together they danced and celebrated Eldoria's rebirth. The comfort of warm friendship wrapped itself around them like a blanket. Kayla felt the shadows of her past beginning to break and splinter, replaced with a vibrant future filled with hope and possibility. As the light of dawn approached, spreading the first rays of day over town, Kayla knew she had unraveled not only the secrets of Eldoria, but also found herself. Whatever destiny awaited her, she was prepared to turn its pages with her friends. Months flew by from that night on, yet Kayla often returned to Eldoria with her friends. The town had blossomed with the warmth of revitalized energy. Its spirit was regenerated through the sacrifices against the Dark One. She gave herself to the chronicling of Eldoria, the stories of yesteryears, the vibrancy of the present. She had found a music box, which became a symbol of hope. It reminded her that there was a joy that could be gotten again after the darkness seemed to swallow it up. One day, while walking across the town square, Kayla stopped to watch the townsfolk prepare for the annual festival. Excitement vibrated through the air, accompanied by the sweet sounds of laughter and music. As she stood there, a familiar figure appeared. It was her mother, looking as radiant as ever, and the worry that had clouded her absence was now gone. "Mom!" Kayla exclaimed, running forward to hug her. "Where have you been?" Her mother smiled, tears of joy in her eyes. "I was lost, but I found my way back. I saw the power of love and sacrifice, and I knew you would be here, creating a new legacy for Eldoria." She stepped back, her heart racing with joy. "We did it, Mom. We brought Eldoria back to life, and now we get to share its magic with the world." Standing in the heart of Eldoria, surrounded by friends and family, Kayla felt the weight of her past finally lift. Though the journey changed her, it also shed light on the path ahead. Together they could rejoice in the magic of Eldoria. This place had reclaimed its spirit and had bound them together in love and friendship. As the festival continued around her, Kayla knew this was only the beginning. Strong with the spirit of the Guardian and the love of her friends, she was ready for whatever further adventures lay ahead, carrying the light of Eldoria within her heart forever.